midday, and this is Africa Update coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa on Channel Africa Radio from an African perspective. I'm Lulu Gaboo. I'm in studio with Onele Nzinzi, with Buntle Headbush, Figile Lingwati, and Tabiso Leho with our business news. A lot coming up in this hour. The president of Mozambique, Daniel Chapo, is visiting Malawi on a 2-day official visit, and he arrived in the country's Kamaru airport this morning. And as the world marks Environment Day, Greenpeace Africa is demonstrating outside the offices of a global soft drinks maker, Coca-Cola, in Johannesburg, South Africa, to expose one of the world's most recognizable brands and its contribution to global pollution. All these and more after the news with Buntle Headbush.
SABC News, the African perspective.
Thanks, Lulu. Good afternoon. In our top story this afternoon, the World Bank says it will resume funding to Uganda nearly 2 years after the global lender suspended new financing to the country in response to an anti-LGBT law that imposes penalties, including death and life imprisonment. The bank halted funding to the East African country in August 2023 after Uganda's parliament passed the Anti-Homosexuality Act, saying the law contradicted its values. Sisi Sahalo reports.
The bank had worked with Ugandan authorities to put in place strong measures to mitigate against potential harm from the law. The World Bank is one of Uganda's biggest sources of external financing, especially in infrastructure construction in the transport sector. The Anti-Homosexuality Act mandates the death penalty for so-called aggravated homosexuality, which includes, among other categories, having same-sex relations with a disabled person or where gay sex results in transmission of a terminal illness to a victim.
The president of Mozambique, Daniel Chapo, is visiting Malawi on a 2-day official visit. He arrived at the country's Kamaru International Airport this morning. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Malawi says the 2-day visit includes bilateral discussions with Malawi President Dr. Lazarus Chakwera and will be focused on deepening and consolidating the cordial and long-standing bilateral relations between the two countries. The two presidents are also expected to launch the Dedza Kalamo one-stop border post in Dedza. The government in the Democratic Republic of Congo has banned the media from reporting on the activities of the former president, Joseph Kabila, and his political party. The government wants to charge Kabila with treason after accusing him of links to M23 rebels, something he's denied. The BBC's Will Ross has more.
The head of Congo's media regulator has been on radio stations, including one funded by the UN, to explain that any reporting on Joseph Kabila's activities will lead to a suspension. This is an attempt by the Kinshasa government to starve the former president of publicity at a time when this strong critic of Felix Tshisekedi has been calling for an end to what he describes as the dictatorship. The ban won't have any impact in the rebel-held areas of eastern Congo, where Mr. Kabila is currently based.
As a global community marks World Environment Day today, Greenpeace Africa has embarked on a demonstration outside the offices of the global soft drink manufacturer Coca-Cola in Johannesburg, South Africa. The non-profit organization says the goal is to expose one of the world's most recognizable brands and its contribution to global pollution. The focus of World Environment Day this year is on ending plastic pollution globally. Helen Denner, project lead Pan-African Plastics Project at Greenpeace Africa, says Coca-Cola has been named as the world's topmost polluter for 6 years running now, from 2018 to 2023.
So today on World Environment Day, we are outside Coca-Cola's corporate office in Johannesburg, and the reason why we're here is because Coca-Cola has been named as the world's topmost polluter for 6 years running, from 2018 to 2023. And Coca-Cola produces 120 billion throwaway plastics every year, and these plastics will end up in the environment, in the marine ecosystem, and having not just environmental impact but also impacts on our ill health.
There has been a further delay to the reopening of the aid distribution centers run by the US-Israeli-backed Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. The organization said it closed its hubs for 24 hours yesterday to make efficiency improvements. Dozens of Palestinians have been killed in recent days while trying to reach the sites. Claire Manera from the charity MSF is in Gaza.
These distribution sites are in the most dangerous part of Gaza, so to put them there in the first place has no sense to it at all. They're areas that we're not meant to go as humanitarian workers, and the people are going there in the night because they want to be there ready first to try and get some aid, and then they know it's a very dangerous area, but they have no choice.
And those are the news at this hour. For any news stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I am Buntle Hetbush.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
And in our sports headline this hour, Bafana coach Vela Kumalo laments the team's COSAFA Cup opening match loss. And Springbok coach has named an exciting, experienced and very powerful 54-man squad for the upcoming international season. I'll be back with these and other stories at the bottom of the hour.
Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
Thank you to Buntle Hetbush with our news update and Figile Lingwati with our sports headlines. It is 12:07 Central African Time and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. Now join us in conversation on our social media platforms. That's on X, Instagram and subscribe on YouTube at Channel Africa 1. On Facebook at Channel Africa, you can also send us your comments and voice notes to +2763 at 406 9126 #Africa Update and let us know which country you're in. And if you have any stories that you'd like us to highlight or to focus on, send us an email. It is newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or give us a call on +27 11 714 4459.
Get Channel Africa on DSTV Audio Bouquet. Channel 802. Africa Update on Channel Africa.
We are on DSTV's Audio Bouquet Channel 802, an OpenView Channel 628 and on www.channelafrica.co.za as well as on the SABC Plus app available on the Apple and Google Play stores.
Tune in and turn up the volume. This is Channel Africa.
Cameroon is now the world's most neglected displacement crisis, according to a new report from the Norwegian Refugee Council. The annual list of neglected displacement crisis is based on 3 criteria: lack of humanitarian funding, lack of media attention, and a lack of effective political engagement to end conflict and improve conditions for displaced people. The crisis in Ethiopia ranks second, its highest ever placement on the list, while Mozambique in third features for the first time. Channel Africa's Ayanda Mkwanazi spoke to Chastel Hugh, the regional head of advocacy, media and communication at the Norwegian Refugee Council, about the latest report.
Cameroon, we can say, is a little bit like a case of neglect, unfortunately. It has been neglected and overlooked for many years. What you need to know is that it's not the first time that Cameroon is ranked number 1. It was also number 1 in 2018 and 2019. It was second in 2023. So Cameroon has almost always been there in the top 3 of the most neglected crises. Why? For 3 reasons, based on the 3 different criteria. So first of all, it's quite obvious that it is neglected in the lack of funding. Even before we had the global U.S. funding cuts this year. In 2024, basically less than $1 per person in need was provided a week in humanitarian assistance, less than $1. Basically, you had a gap of $200 million in 2024 to be able to reach the most vulnerable people. It means that 200 million USD, it can seem big, but at the end, if you compare it with some other numbers, it's not that big. For instance, we know that this is less than what Ronaldo earned in 2024. This is only a fifth of what Taylor Swift earned thanks to her last tour in 2024. So at the end, it's nothing when you compare to that. Then Cameroon struggled to make headlines in 2024. Because it has been neglected for so long, it was only mentioned less than 30,000 times in media outlets last year, and by comparison, for the crisis in Ukraine, we had almost 500,000 mentions in the media.
Do we know where these displaced people are? Or have there been any efforts to try and track them, find where they are right now?
This is what the NRC does to provide humanitarian assistance to these displaced people. So in Cameroon in 2024, you had more than a million people that were internally displaced, and also almost 500,000 refugees inside the country. What is quite specific about Cameroon is that actually you have three different crises. So first of all, you have one in the far north region, which is at the border with Nigeria, but basically has been affected by the fighting between armed groups, which has led to more than 700,000 people facing acute food insecurity in 2024. Then you have the northwest and southwest regions where you have 600,000 people that are displaced and that are struggling to access basically the basic services, including safe and clean water or emergency housing. And then at the end, you have the east of the country, which is at the border with Central African Republic, where you have hundreds of thousands of refugees from CAR that have sought refuge in Cameroon, but for many of them for more than a decade.
Now, Christelle, Cameroon is in this situation now, and it's quite devastating. Are there any recommendations that the NRC has put forward that could just try and reduce such or incidences such as these?
Even if the situation is bleak, there is always hope. Neglect is a choice. It's something that we can reverse. For that, first of all, we ask donor countries to stand in solidarity with the most neglected people and to ensure that neglected crises are high on the list of humanitarian priorities. Second of all, we also ask donors to support local NGOs and international NGOs. First, with funding, because NGOs are the ones that are closer to the communities, knowing their needs, and also because we are able to adapt quickly. It's really critical today to bridge the gap between this emergency response and longer-term development to ensure that populations can be self-reliant and can start building for themselves a better future.
That was Christelle Hugh, the Regional Head of Advocacy, Media and Communication at the Norwegian Refugee Council, speaking to Channel Africa's Ayandam Kwanazi.
We are on OpenView's audio bouquet. Channel 628.
It is 12:14 Central African time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. The President of Mozambique, Daniel Chapo, is visiting Malawi on a two-day official visit. Now, he arrived in the country at the Kamaru International Airport this morning. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Malawi says the two-day visit includes bilateral discussions with Malawi's President, Dr. Lazarus Chakwera, and will be focused on deepening and consolidating the cordial and long-standing bilateral relations between the two countries. The two presidents are also expected to launch the Dedza Kalumi one-stop border post in Dedza. And to chat to us further on this, we are joined on the line by a political and economic analyst in Malawi, Dr. George Chaima. Dr. Chaima, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Good afternoon to you, and thank you.
Now, Dr. Chaima, what is the significance of the visit by the president of Mozambique to Malawi?
We are looking at the bilateral relations which exists between Malawi and Mozambique being a long-term kind of relationship. And as you know, the heads of state for two different countries keep on visiting each other, sharing their challenges and also opportunities. As you know, that Malawi and Mozambique share common values. And so I think their interaction and the visit of the Mozambican president, Chapo, to Malawi is very significant, as this anchors on the how they can look at their countries can be strengthened in terms of their relationship for trade, for policy issues, and also for development. You know that Malawi depends on Mozambique for its trade system, because we are a landlocked country, and we use their ports in Nakara and also Beira. So we cannot operate without our link to Mozambique. And besides that, you have also to understand that Mozambique has been going through a spate of wars over the years. And Malawi serves as a safe haven for Mozambican refugees. Wherever there are issues in Mozambique, most of refugees seek refugee and protection in Malawi. That is also a very strong element of the relationship for Malawi and Mozambique. As you rightly said, to strengthen the economic and trade relationship between these two countries, there has been a program, a deliberate program, whereby they have constructed what we call one border post, which means that Mozambique and Malawi have come together to build a strong border post whereby issues of clearance for goods and travel should be facilitated easier without taking too long. So the president of Mozambique's visit today also hinges on the importance of him witnessing the inauguration of this border post between Malawi and Mozambique. So after that, it's expected that the two presidents will come together and discuss more about how their relationship can be strengthened.
And just speaking of continued strengthening of relations going forward between both countries, if we look at the case of Malawi being a refuge in terms of thousands of Mozambicans after the elections last year, a lot of Mozambicans moved to Malawi just for some time when there was a bit of turbulence in Mozambique. This obviously is from these relations and the fact that they do have, their neighbors, and they do have a system of allowing people to come through like any other SADC region, as we've seen President Daniel Chapo visiting a number of other SADC countries with regards to building and strengthening relations. Now, this in particular, the economic situation of both countries. Let's talk about this and how it'll benefit both countries going forward in terms of their relations.
Countries do not live or operate in isolation. They live in a small, either global or regional village. Let's call ours a regional village, whereby we all operate under SADC or COMESA, whereby countries share different kind of opportunities and also challenges. Where there are issues of refugees, obviously, there is an opportunity besides suffering of the people. When people migrate into your country, they also come along with opportunities which can contribute to solving some economic challenges. For example, at the time when Malawi is hosting Mozambican refugees, countries from outside Africa or the donor countries and other regional countries also look at the plight of Mozambican refugees and see how from different countries just to make sure that the lives of these Mozambican refugees is somehow eased. So besides them suffering due to the issue of hosting Mozambicans, Malawi also benefits. And, when we are working as a bloc in a region like this, each country takes part in solving each other's country's problems. So I think by so doing, it increases the level of trade among the countries that are involved, that are operating within the region. So I think much as we have issues of refugees, but there are also some economic benefits that come along.
All right, we seem to have lost that. All right, he's back. Okay, we lost you there, Dr. Chaima, for a moment or two, but we have come to the end of our discussion, and thank you so much for joining us on Africa Update today.
You are welcome. Thank you.
That was a political and economic analyst in Malawi, Dr. George Chaima, and he was joining us on the line. It is 23 after 12 Central African Time.
Vue d'Afrique avec Joël Mouteba.
Alors peut-on considérer cette décision comme un désengagement durable des États-Unis vis-à-vis du développement africain ou s'agit-il d'un simple réalignement stratégique?
Bon, ça peut être les deux à la fois. Donc, au lieu de donner de l'argent à la Banque africaine de développement pour partager en vrac, ils préfèrent maintenant donc cibler les pays partenaires en Afrique. Ça, c'est pour le réalignement stratégique. Alors, et aussi, ce n'est pas un désengagement durable, mais je pense que dans les 2 ou 3 prochaines années, il veut d'abord remettre de l'ordre dans ses affaires.
Vue d'Afrique. Du lundi au vendredi de 15h à 16h, temps universel.
In this episode of Channel Africa Conversations, Peter talks to Dr. Tulisile Buddha, an academic, author, and an expert in indigenous knowledge systems. Join us for a compelling discussion on preserving African languages and traditions in the digital era. Dr. Tulisile unpacks the role of educators, explorers, and how technologies like AI can support cultural preservation, and challenges us to rethink how we honor African heritage. You can find the episode on YouTube, SABC Plus, and on our website, channelafrica.co.za. This episode is a must-listen for educators, creators, and change makers across the continent. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
It is 12:24 Central African Time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. The ECOWAS Court of Justice is expected to host its inaugural moot court competition in Niger State, Nigeria. Now, the competition is part of efforts to deepen knowledge of community law among law students in West Africa. It will further enhance and strengthen the protection for displaced and stateless persons. Our human rights lawyer in Nigeria, Frank Tite, has been appointed to serve as one of the judges in the moot court competition, and he now joins us on the line to tell us more. Frank, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update. Now, Frank, just tell us more about this competition and what it aims to achieve. And also just, the fact that, just for clarity's sake, a moot court is a court where law students argue imaginary and cases for practice. Just take us through what this is all about in this competition.
Oh, well, thank you very much. The competition has become necessary because we're talking about a moot court competition for the purpose of encouraging law students who ultimately become judges or lawyers and various officials of justice delivery system in the various countries that make up the ECOWAS sub-region. Now, interestingly, the ECOWAS court has become one of the most important success stories of the entire ECOWAS story. And to now think that it has not been maximized because of its human rights jurisdiction that serves to benefit the people, the citizens of the community citizens of the ECOWAS, is something that is important that students learn how to get used to the procedures, to the rules, community laws, the various protocols of the ECOWAS of the community. I'm talking about the ECOWAS community. So this moot court competition, it's meant to deepen the understanding of law students across the entire region for the purpose of ensuring that they are able to get used to the procedures of the court. And in doing that, it's expected that these students will, showcase their advocacy skills, their knowledge of the community law, and then they also, get involved in, sharing their knowledge of the jurisprudence that the court has developed since it began its sitting in 2005.
Now, Frank, let's talk about the moot case, so to speak, in terms of, looking at enhancing and strengthening the protection for displaced and stateless person. This is a crisis, especially on the African continent.
Initially, when the ECOWAS Court was established according to the revised treaty, it was meant to deal essentially with disputes that will arise between the state parties of the ECOWAS sub-region. However, its jurisdiction has been expanded to deal with cases of human rights, and then it has also given access to individual members of the various countries that make up the ECOWAS sub-region. Now, with a situation with various forms of human rights violations across the West African sub-region, together with this particular mention of stateless persons, so long as there is clear-cut violation of human rights by state parties or by other circumstances that are even unforeseen, such individuals or groups suffering such violations can approach the court. And the ECOWAS court, interestingly, over the years, has not shied away from exercising its jurisdiction over hearing cases of human rights violations. So, and that does not exclude cases that involve stateless persons, indeed, who can approach the court if their rights, their fundamental rights in Nigeria, and their rights under international law are violated.
Now, Frank, tell us about some of the young people who will be taking part in the competition, and what happens to the winners post the competition. With regards to what do they get? Is it just recognition, or is there prize money, or something?
Oh, well, definitely they will get recognition. But I think the ECOWAS community courts will be in a better position to give the details. But I know from the rules of the competition that I have been given, it's clear that the winning team, the best winning team will definitely be recognized. The runner-up will also be recognized. But one thing that I find quite significant is that the best female oralist will also be recognized in addition to the male oralist. So in the competition, they will recognize winners at the team level and will also recognize winners at the individual level, specifically with regards to male and female. I definitely, they will get a sort of certificate of participation, certificate of being winners. But there is no doubt that something much more significant will go with winning the prize, winning the competition, because it's going to be very rigorous. From what I have seen in the rules, from the demands on the students, they are going to write briefs which are called memorials. They are going to prefer oral arguments, to support whatever position they are taking with regards to the hypothetical case, which actually highlights community laws and the various protocols of the ECOWAS, the ECOWAS countries. In this case, it's expected that when the students finish and the public is following, there will be a better understanding, a greater and increased understanding of how the ECOWAS court operates. And it's expected that when these students ultimately become lawyers, they will utilize the ECOWAS court. As many lawyers like myself have used the court in the past to achieve various forms of human rights violation, redress for various forms of human rights violations.
Frank, we have run out of time, but I have to ask, how long is the moot court expected to be in session? How long will it take? And, is it over a couple of days? Just take us through that.
Yes, it will take a few days, the preliminary stages, and then you now have the knockout stages, then you get to the semi-final stages, ultimately before we get to the championship stage. In a couple of days, we will be able to get through all of these, and winners will be declared. I think it promises a very interesting time for the entire community, the ECOWAS community at this time. Now, to also think that students are looking forward to exhibiting their knowledge of international law, of the ECOWAS law, they have to talk about the community law, and then the procedure of the ECOWAS court. I think that we are in to a new wave of understanding of how the ECOWAS court can actually benefit the community citizens.
Frank, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us on Africa Update.
Thank you, my pleasure indeed.
That's human rights lawyer in Nigeria, Frank Tiete, joining us on the line. Our news headlines up next with Buntle Headbush.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Good afternoon. In the headlines at this hour, Cameroon is now the world's most neglected displacement crisis, according to a new report from the Norwegian Refugee Council. The annual list of neglected displacement crises is based on 3 criteria: lack of humanitarian funding, lack of media attention, and a lack of effective political engagement to end conflict and improve conditions for displaced people. The World Bank says it will resume funding to Uganda nearly 2 years after the global lender suspended new financing to the country in response to an anti-LGBT law that imposes penalties including death and life imprisonment. The bank halted funding to the East African country in August 2023 after Uganda's parliament passed the Anti-Homosexuality Act, saying the law contradicted its values. And the U.S. Defense Secretary has told NATO allies they cannot depend solely on the United States for their security. Pete Hegseth was speaking as he arrived for a meeting in Brussels. He repeated President Donald Trump's demand that every NATO member contribute 5% of GDP to defense and said Washington's messages was clear. Details of these and other stories at the top of the hour.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Oh, thank you, Buntle. We say good afternoon to Figile Lingwati with our sports update.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Lulu. Good afternoon. Let's kick off with football news. Bafana interim coach Vela Khumalo has lamented the manner in which they started their 2025 COSAFA Cup campaign, and the locally based national senior men's team suffered a 1-0 defeat to Mozambique in the opening encounter of the regional tournament hosted in Bloemfontein in the Free State province.
I think this is not the best way to start the tournament. Performance-wise, one will then say, yeah, look, we played well, we played the way we wanted to play. Then one will then say what needs to be improved from this. It will then be going back to the session and say, how do we convert our chances? I think with the first stanza of the game, we had so many entries into the box, into the final third, but we did not convert the chances. We were rushing things when we got into the box, and second half we spoke to that, and then we even made the team aware that the only time they will score a goal is when they get us on transition.
Former Marumo Gallants coach Abdisalam Wadu has revealed the club could not afford to pay the salary promised to him after he managed to save the Betway Premiership status last month. The Frenchman elaborated on the extent of his disagreement with Gallants chairperson Abraham Sello before he decided to quit.
When somebody call you in the meeting and tell you that we cannot afford to pay you next season, there is two choices. One choice, you said, okay, we stop here. But the second choice is if you like the club, if you love the people, if you love the players, maybe you try to find solutions. So I told him, okay, maybe let's offer me, give me another offer. So he gave me another offer. And he put some clause that I didn't like, not fair clause.
Rugby news, Springbok coach Rassie Erasmus named the same 54 players, 9 of whom are uncapped, that attended the second national alignment camp in Cape Town last month in large training squad for the opening stages of the international season, which kicks off on the 28th of June against the Barbarians, followed by the Castle incoming series. The squad, which was confirmed earlier by South African Rugby, includes 31 Rugby World Cup players. And Rassie says, with the Bulls, Sharks and Leinster still in the race for the Vodacom United Rugby Championship Grand Final, along with the teammates from Bath, Leicester Tigers and the Sale Sharks, who will contest the Gallagher Premiership semi-final this weekend, a staggered approach will be adopted to the players joining the camp. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Fidel Ngwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Hi, I'm Tami Ngubeni, anchor of Africa in Business on Channel Africa, bringing you the African perspective.
And I'm Ashraf Garda, host of the National Pulse on SAFM, leading the conversation.
We've joined forces to bring you in-depth, exclusive G20 developments as we count down to the much-awaited inaugural G20 summit in South Africa, November 2025.
Tune in every Thursday at 16:20 Central African Time as we explore how this first G20 in Africa impacts the continent, from trade and innovation to climate and development.
It's a powerful crossover between Channel Africa and SAFM
as we bring you the G20 through an African lens.
The G20 in Africa.
Global Summit.
An African voice.
It is 12:39 Central African Time, and our business news up next with Thabiso Lohoko.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thanks, Lulu, and good afternoon. Kenya's private sector activity contracted in May for the first time in 7 months, hurt by a slowing performance in the construction, wholesale and retail and services sectors. The Stanbic Bank Kenya Purchasing Managers Index fell to 49.6 in May from 52.0 a month earlier. Joey Lukhodi has more.
Readings above 50.0 indicate growth in business activity, while those below that signal contraction. Stanbic Bank Kenya says total business output contracted at the fastest rate in 10 months in May, although the overall downturn was only slight. According to the survey, business expectations for the next 12 months were subdued in May, falling to their second lowest level on record. Just 4% of surveyed firms expect improved performance in the period.
A South African business forum, the Black Business Council, says the empowerment of the previously disadvantaged remains a pipe dream despite numerous promises. The council is hosting black professionals, policymakers and industry players for the 2025 BBC Summit underway in Kempton Park, east of Johannesburg. The summit is a platform for engagement on developments in the economy, policies and access to opportunities for black businesses. President of the council, Elias Munache, says that the summit must serve to address a number of issues.
For too long, the economic promises made to the marginalized, to black-owned businesses and professionals, to women entrepreneurs and to the youth have remained words instead of policy. Access to funding is not a favor, it is an imperative. The economic liberation of black business is not negotiable. It is essential for thriving, just and competitive South Africa.
Unlicensed mining is intensifying in the western and savannah regions of Ghana, which is contributing to the country's artisanal and small-scale gold mining sector expanding rapidly, mostly outside legal oversight. Limited job opportunities in the country is one of the reasons unemployed citizens are venturing into this practice. According to Fitch Solutions, unemployment in Ghana in 2025 is expected to remain at an average of 4.0%, maintaining this level over 2026. Director of Extractives at the Global Initiative Against Transnational Organized Crime, Masina Hunter, made this comment.
I think one of the first big observations is the uptake of new technology and equipment. We're seeing a lot of advancement, and a lot of that has been introduced by foreign nationals. And so seeing, for example, the shift from just using mercury processing to using cyanide leaching, which is a lot more profitable and generates a lot more high qualities and quantities of gold.
Suzuki Motors' suspension of production of its flagship Swift subcompact is due to China's rare earth restrictions, becoming the first Japanese automaker to be affected by the export curbs. The small car maker halted production of the Swift, excluding the Swift Sport version, from the 26th of May, citing a shortage of components. In a statement, Suzuki says plans to resume output have been pushed back several times, and now the car brand expects a partial restart of production in the next 2 weeks, as the prospect of parts supply is now clearer. Indicators at this hour. $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 579. Botswana 13.29. Kenya 128 shilling 552, and Zambia 26 kwacha 30. The BRICS countries in Brazil, the dollar will cost you 5 riyal 63, Russia 78 rubles 95, India 85 rupees 85, China 7 yuan 18, and in South Africa the dollar will cost you 17 rand 82. $1 is trading at 73 pence to the British pound and 87 to the euro. A look at commodities markets now. Gold is trading at $3,371 and platinum at $1,115 per ounce. Brent crude oil is at $65.18 a barrel. For any business stories you would like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business in Johannesburg, I'm Thabiso Lohoko.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. Africa Update. with Lulu Gaboo on Channel Africa.
Thank you to Tabiso Luhuku with our business news. It is 12:44 Central African time and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. The South African National Blood Service says less than 1% of the population are blood donors in the country. This is due to the burden of disease that the country is facing, particularly HIV, hepatitis B and hepatitis C, and also due to the fact that people say they are too busy to donate. The organisation was addressing the media in Johannesburg in South Africa on Wednesday ahead of the World Donor Day next Saturday. Sisi Sekhalo has more.
So the transplant itself is quite a traumatic experience because when they transplant, they put you on full life support. So they shut your whole body down, literally put you on life support. You also lose almost all the blood in your body. So literally everything in your body has to be replaced. So that's why when I spoke, I said that without blood, this transplant would not have succeeded because I got blood to the tune of 367,000 rand. That's how much the blood cost.
That was Mina Singh, whose health had deteriorated so much more than a decade ago to a point where she needed a liver transplant. The transplant was possible as a result of blood donation. She's grateful to the donors.
And in March, it was 19 years since I had the transplant. It's given me 19 years to spend with my children. My daughter was 16 when I had my transplant. My son was 10. Today I have a daughter of 35 and a son of 29. And it's given me that time. And like I said, it's not just the liver, it was the blood itself. Also, without blood, that transplant would never have succeeded.
It is residents like Buti Mtombeni that have given people like Mina Singh a lifeline. Mtombeni has been donating for the past 6 years. For him, it took a lot of convincing from the employee of the South African National Blood Service to donate, but it is a decision that he does not regret. He urges others to follow suit.
I think the biggest impact that blood donors have and that they don't realize is that a lot of them think that they will never need blood, primarily because unfortunately, just like a security system, you want people to break in first before you install a security system. A lot of them think that they'll reach a point where they are born to a point where they die, where they don't need blood. A lot of the advertisements that we have and that we see focus more on the numbers of people that donate, the 1% in the entire South African population, but they don't show the dark side of not donating, where now you're sitting in a situation where in any general hospital, any private hospital, if there is no blood, there is no blood. So the message would be, don't wait for it to happen to somebody that you care about, that they find themselves in a situation where they need blood, for you to actually donate blood and see the impact that it can have. Donate blood as a way of giving back and realizing that someday you might find yourself in a predicament where your life might need to be saved.
Unfortunately, few people in South Africa are blood donors. Reasons vary from eligible age, people saying that donating is not a priority, and some saying they are simply too busy to go and donate. The Chief Executive Officer of the South African National Blood Service, Ravi Reddy, says people need to know that you do not only donate once, you have to be a regular donor in order to avoid shortage of blood. This is his message ahead of World Blood Donor Day next week.
My message is simply to those who are donors, thank you very much. This month and the day globally is to just, take a few moments to reflect from us as the people who collect the blood from the patients, the immense contribution that you as blood donors are making to society, and to say thank you very much. We really appreciate it. For those who play a support role, the media, the drivers, people in the hospitals and nurses, to also say thank you very much. You are the unsung heroes and heroines as well. Blood on the shelf is going nowhere. We need the infrastructure to do it. And then for those who are not donors, to use this opportunity to say, how can I join the club? How can I become part of that society that is saving lives? In this material world that we live now, I think everyone needs a purpose. Social media, we're looking at this and that. But there's no greater purpose than, as I think you mentioned earlier, giving something of yourself to someone you don't know.
As World Blood Donor Day will be celebrated next week, Saturday, under the theme Give Blood, Give Hope, Together We Save Lives, citizens have been encouraged to donate blood that could potentially save a life. For Channel Africa, I'm Sisi Sekhalo in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Africa Update on Channel Africa.
Greenpeace Africa is demonstrating outside the offices of a global soft drinks maker Coca-Cola in Johannesburg, that's in the Gauteng province of South Africa, on World Environment Day. This high-impact visual demonstration is exposing one of the world's most recognizable brands and its contribution to global pollution. The creative activity aligns with the UN's 2025 World Environment Day focus on ending plastic pollution. Channel Africa's news reporter Tuto Ngobeni spoke to Helen Dina, a project lead, a Pan-African Plastics Project at Greenpeace Africa, about this demonstration.
So today on World Environment Day, we are outside Coca-Cola's corporate office in Johannesburg, and the reason why we're here is because Coca-Cola has been named as the world's top most polluter for 6 years running, from 2018 to 2023. And Coca-Cola produces 120 billion throwaway plastics every year, and these plastics will end up in the environment, in the marine ecosystem, and having not just environmental impact but also impacts on our ill health.
So now, in terms of your protest today, what do you hope to achieve? What is it that you hope to achieve by coming out here and protesting?
So we are telling Coca-Cola to cap plastic production and to invest in refill and reuse models, things like the glass bottles, the cans that we used to have before. And secondly, we are telling Coca-Cola to be a strong advocate of the Global Plastic Treaty, that is the negotiations that are ongoing. Coca-Cola is part of the business coalition, and so we want them to use their influential position to actually influence, but also advocate strongly for the Global Plastic Treaty. And this treaty, when agreed, will enable us to cap plastic production.
And how far is this plastic treaty? I mean, when can we see it being active?
We are at the final stages of the negotiation, and we will be having the second round of the fifth meeting, that is INC 5.2 in Geneva in August. And we hope that by the time we leave Geneva, we will be coming back home with a strong treaty. The member states failed to agree last year in Busan because there were a few articles, one of them being production, that were very contentious. A number of the member states want to look at downstream measures, especially the big oil producers. They do not want to touch anything on production. But you see, we cannot have a waste management treaty. We need a treaty that will look at, capping plastic production. But as Greenpeace Africa, we are calling for at least a 75%, reduction in plastic production by the year 2040. And we want Coca-Cola to be part of that, one of the, corporates really strongly advocating for this.
And do you think corporates are generally willing to actually change their behaviors towards plastic and actually use less of plastic? I mean, this discussion has been going on for such a long time that we still see organizations, restaurants still using those plastic straws.
So corporates are putting profits before people and the planet, but they need to go beyond that, because this is not just for our environment. This is about the health of human beings, of ourselves, but also of future generations. So we are urging corporates to go beyond, business interests, to go beyond profits and look at the impacts, the long-term impacts of plastics, because plastic has been shown to have disproportionately, impacts on marginalized community. Most of this community lives in, global South, Africa being part of that. And I mean, we are not just looking at, these impacts when it comes to the environment, but we are looking at a point where microplastics are now have been found to be in the blood, the water that we drink, in the air that we breathe, even in marine ecosystems. So for those of us who enjoy, fish and other seafood, what does that mean? It means we are consuming as much plastics as is outside there. So we should, corporates should not just look at, this makes sense, because for them, plastics is cheap, plastic is convenient, it's easily, for them it's easily to manage than things like glass. We are asking them to invest invest in reuse and refill bottles. I mean, you do not have to throw away every time, because on average, a plastic bottle is used maybe for 10 minutes, 5 minutes, and then tossed away. But a glass bottle you'll use several times. Research has shown that you can use it up to around 50 times every time you return it and get back your money. So it's not just about looking at profits. Yes, profits are good, but not for the environment, and not when it actually impacts our human health.
Thank you so much.
That's Helen Dina, a project lead, a Pan-African Plastics Project at Greenpeace Africa, speaking to Channel Africa's news reporter, Tuto Ngobeni.
The EU-African SME Summit. Join more than 200 change makers from June 19 to June 21 at the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. It's where trade meets transformation. We are building Africa's future through AFCFTA, the EU's global gateway, and the power of small businesses. It's an opportunity to spark collaboration and unlock Africa's investment. Presented by the European Entrepreneurs, the Pan-African Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and Shared Value Africa. This is a summit not to be missed. Register now at euafricasmesummit.eu. Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo on Channel Africa.
Well, it is that time of the day where we say good afternoon and a happy Thursday.
Yeah.
Ms. Nompumelelo Ngubeni,
how are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Great.
So we are going to be speaking about the psychological impact of being an expat. Okay. I don't know if you've ever lived in a different country.
Not as an expat.
Not an expat. Yeah. Okay. I think you think about people who find jobs elsewhere, and we always glorify the experience. Oh, you're going to have international experience. You're going to get to live in a different. But they are material, psychological impact, right? And we'll be speaking about that, what that looks like living in a new country, and balancing the excitement, but also the longing for home. Navigating the newness of it all. And then we'll speak to someone who actually did it. And this is a soccer player, Letabo Gedijang.
Okay.
Finding out about his experience. He's in his 20s. So one would imagine that it is a better time, potentially.
Yeah. There are companies that actually do this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
the exchange
they work with expats and companies that hire expats and the process, as you said, the mental side of it and the reality are.
I wonder if those companies provide psychological support and not just financial to relocate and all. Probably
it would
not.
Be interesting to find out, but I don't think so. It's all about, mainly it's about school areas, property, and travel to and from work. So it's quite an interesting one. I'm looking forward to hearing this one.
And then in the second hour, we'll be speaking about the Met Gala. You may remember that a couple of months, was it a month ago?
Yeah,
about a month ago.
The theme and everything.
Yes, and so we are going to be speaking to a designer about what they make of the various looks, but also looking at Nigeria. So Nigerian red carpets are elaborate.
They are, for lack of a better word, insane.
Insane. No, insane is
insane. Because, everything from
meticulous.
From the hair all the way down, the makeup, especially the women, even the men, they really put it up there.
The men just have to show up. They're so gorgeous that they don't have to do much.
Okay. What else is coming up today?
So we'll speak to Nigerian designer about their process when putting together a red carpet look.
Yeah.
I mean, you have really the most elaborate things. Then of course music, as well as what caught your eye from Tebogo and I. And we'd love to engage with our listeners. +2763 4069126.
And there you have it. That's the upside coming up at the top of the hour with Nompumelelo Ngubeni and Tebogo Lekuleni. Do stay tuned. It's definitely an interesting one today. So for myself, Lulu Gaboo, and the Africa Update team, it's been a good day. Keep warm if you are in the SADC region, because it is quite cold in the south these next couple of days. And let's do this again tomorrow. Bye-bye.